Being treated aggressively by a business in Hampshire is actually a crime, and in this presentation we're going to be looking at what you can do if you are treated aggressively by a trader in Hampshire. My name's Claire Bradley and I work here at Direct Eastleigh. Now, Hampshire's a great county. You've got beauties of the New Forest, you've got major commercial centres like Portsmouth, Southampton, Winchester, Basingstoke, but despite all these advantages, there's far too many instances of consumers being treated aggressively whilst in Hampshire, and that is actually against the law, and we'll be explaining what your rights are under those circumstances. Now, under EU and UK law, it's illegal for a trader in Hampshire to treat consumers aggressively, be abusive or swear at them, use undue influence, coercion or harassment to get a customer to buy something. And the background to this is these rules were created by the Unfair Commercial Practices Directive, which is an EU law that came out in 2005. It was implemented in the UK by the Consumer Protection from Unfair Trading Regulations in 2008, and it identified 31 commercial practices that were automatically unfair, known as the blacklist. And it's also illegal for traders to mislead consumers or treat them aggressively under these rules. The sanction for a trader or business which acts aggressively towards a consumer is a £5,000 fine and up to 2 years imprisonment, and the directors of the company can actually be personally liable in this situation and go to prison, as well as the company itself being prosecuted. The aim of this presentation is to inform consumers in Hampshire what they can do if they're treated aggressively by a local trader or business. So you have a general right not to be treated aggressively under both UK and EU law, and it's an offence for a trader to treat a consumer aggressively. But what exactly do people mean when they say aggressively? Commercial practice is aggressive if it significantly impairs, or is likely to significantly impair, the average consumer's freedom of choice or conduct in relation to the product through the use of harassment, coercion or undue influence. And as a result of this harassment, coercion or undue influence, the consumer then makes the decision to either buy something or do something with the product which they wouldn't otherwise have done. Now, harassment, coercion or undue influence under these regulations involves its timing, location, nature or persistence. So if someone calls you up once for a sales call, okay, slightly annoying, but within the law. If they're calling you up 20 times to the point that you almost don't dare answer your phone, then that is tipping over into harassment. So these are things that the courts look at when they're trying to decide whether a breach of these regulations have taken place. Harassment, coercion or undue influence involves also the use of threatening or abusive language or behaviour. No consumer in Hampshire should have to deal with this. It's not necessary and it's not part of the normal sales process. So if somebody is treating you in that way, then effectively they're trying to bully you into buying. Harassment, coercion or undue influence also involves the trader exploiting any particular vulnerabilities of the consumer which they're aware of. So for example, there was a case a few years ago where a gentleman had been involved in a car accident, and as a direct result of that, he wasn't able to say no to salespeople. So he had a ridiculous number of mobile phone contracts because he just wasn't able to say no. And his daughter applied to the court to get all these contracts revoked, and there was concerns made at the time that all the different mobile phone companies, salespeople had called each other up and said, oh, this guy's easy, just contact him, he'll always say yes. So that would be an example of a trader exploiting a particular vulnerability of a consumer. Harassment, coercion or undue influence also involves any onerous or disproportionate non-contractual barrier imposed by the trader where a consumer is trying to exercise their rights under the contract, including rights to terminate a contract or to switch provider or anything like that. And so these are things that a trader does that makes it difficult for you to do that. For example, switching banks used to be a major palaver, that's now a lot easier. Getting refunds sometimes from companies involves a very long, drawn-out process, and the company will sometimes deliberately make that difficult so that people just give up or don't bother claim their refunds. And that would be an example of an aggressive commercial practice where a trader is imposing non-contractual barriers to prevent people from actually enforcing their rights. Harassment, coercion or undue influence also involves any threat to take action which cannot legally be taken. Obviously, that will vary depending on the circumstances. It's worth noting that these rules apply to both large companies and SMEs. So if a large company is treating you in an aggressive way, write to the director, explain that unless the behaviour stops, you'll be invoking these rules, and the director could then go to prison for 2 years and or pay a £5,000 fine. In some ways, I have more sympathy for small businesses who may or may not be aware of these rules, and I would usually try and give a small business the opportunity to put the thing right, because some of them may not be aware that these rules have come in. However, large companies have got no excuse. They have regulatory departments whose sole job is to keep up to date with changes in the law. So if they're treating you aggressively, it's from choice, not because they don't know better. And therefore, in that situation, I would be less than sympathetic if a large company was trying to treat me aggressively. Banks and insurance companies also come under these rules, so do train companies, including revenue protection officers on trains, debt collection agencies, and all other businesses. Where you can go for help if you've been misled or treated aggressively by a Hampshire trader. Your first stop, if you feel you've been treated aggressively by a trader in Hampshire, is to contact the local Trading Standards Office, as they're actually under a duty to act under the regulations. Hampshire Trading Standards can be contacted at Montgomery House, Monarch Way, Winchester, SO22 5PW. And the number's 01962 833 620. Alternatively, you can also email them at tsadvice@hants.gov.uk. Consumers in Hampshire can also get further advice by contacting the Citizen Advice Consumer Service, which provides free, confidential and impartial advice on consumer issues. And their web address is www.adviceguide.org.uk. You can contact the Citizens Advice Consumer Helpline by calling 03 454 040506. In 2014, the law was updated, and now consumers can bring private civil claims against businesses who use aggressive or misleading commercial practices. And this is known as the right of private redress. It doesn't apply to financial services, nor does it apply to real estate, apart from assured tenancies and leases relating to holiday lets, and also it doesn't apply to credit agreements. Now, if a consumer has been the victim of an aggressive commercial practice and decides to exercise their private rights of redress, they can claim the following remedies. They can unwind a contract and get their money back, which terminates the contract, it ends the contract. They can get a discount on the price paid, which keeps the contract running, and they can claim damages for detriment caused, including distress and things like that. If a consumer would rather not exercise their private right of redress, then they can still contact the regulators such as Trading Standards, who then have the option to bring a criminal prosecution against the trader under the Unfair Consumer Protection from Unfair Trading Regulations of 2008. Now, these EU rules are powerful and put consumers who are treated in an unfair, misleading or aggressive way in a very strong position, as very few traders are actually prepared to go to prison for 2 years and pay a £5,000 fine for such behaviour. So there is absolutely no reason for any consumer in Hampshire to put up with being treated badly or aggressively by business in the county. If anyone tries that on with you, enforce your rights. The law is there to back you up, and you are in a far stronger position, even if it might not feel like it, than the trader who's treating you badly. Thank you.